you for whoever did that. All right, so as I said, I'm Rachel Kennison. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm going to hand it off to Shauna, and then we will go around and introduce the rest of the members of our team.
Hi, I'm Shauna Shaked. I'm also at CEILS as Senior Associate Director. My pronouns are she, her, and my background is physics. And I direct our Undergraduate Learning Assistant program. Excited. Katie, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hello all, my name is Katie Dixie. My pronouns are also she, her, hers. I'm the new Assistant Director of CEILS. I work a lot with graduate students and postdocs, so future faculty and TA training. And my background is in the life sciences. We'll go to Kiana.
Hi everybody, my name is Kiana Fox. My pronouns are also she, her, hers, and I am one of the GSRs in CEILS, and I'm also a PhD student in the Higher Education and Organizational Change program.
Hi everyone, my name is Benjamin Ha. I'm also one of the summer GSRs in CEILS, and I'm a PhD candidate in ecology and evolutionary bio.
Hi everyone, my name is Sammy Mensa. I am a PhD candidate in materials chemistry. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a GSR with CEILS this summer.
Hi, I'm Jenny Casey. My pronouns are also she, her, and I am an instructor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry.
Great. All right, thank you all. And so Shauna's going to take over in a minute, but I also want to just remind everybody of kind of what you're going to need for this workshop. You're going to need to be able to access your chat, so make sure you have your chat open. We're also going to ask you to go to a Google Doc, so you will be accessing a Google Doc. But other than that, we just want to remind everybody to have all their other screens off and their phone off and everything just to help you be as present as you can be for the workshop. Okay, Shauna, go ahead.
Okay, well, since this series is about teaching equitably, I do want to clarify the language, because this is not language I was familiar with before I became familiar with these topics, of the difference between equality and equity. So treating everybody equally would be treating them the same and saying, okay, and a lot of times it's treating people the way we would want to be treated, actually, whereas treating everybody in an equitable way is basically equalizing opportunity, is recognizing that all our students are coming to us with different experiences, different backgrounds, different perspectives, different ability levels, and then tailoring our teaching in ways that can still get them to the same learning outcomes. And so we want to clarify that's what we'll be coming to this as, is that we're not trying to treat everybody equal, we're trying to recognize how our students are very different and meet them where they're at and still get them all to the same level. Okay.
Great.
So,
slide.
Hand this over to Rachel now.
Yeah. So yeah, we just kind of wanted to give you the context for all of this and thinking about why we're focusing this workshop specifically on equity. And this came from a tool that we're going to go through today from the USC Center for Urban Education. And it's really thinking about how, with these very few exceptions, which historically Black colleges and universities are the most notable, higher education institutions were really founded to serve white students, and particularly those who are male, middle to upper class, heterosexual, able-bodied, and Christian. So this is really historically the premise, right, for our institution's structural policies. Go ahead, next. There we go. So despite this increasing diversity, right, of all of our American college student population, these practices and these policies really haven't been reconfigured to think about equity, right, and to think about how to equitably support and affirm and validate those students from underrepresented groups in STEM. So we are going to be thinking about the syllabus today as a tool to how we can affirm the belonging of these underrepresented students in higher ed. And one example of that might be representing their experiences in our course materials, but we're going to talk about lots of ways that we can make our syllabus and our course materials more equitable. So that's kind of the context of where we're coming from. Shauna.
Okay. One quote from actually a really highly recommended guide by Brenton Felder on teaching and learning in STEM The quote is, "The course syllabus functions as a travel guide, indicating the territory to be covered on a journey from the first day of class to the final exam, the resources needed for the trip, and the traffic rules that must be observed along the way." And so we want to set the stage. We're used to the syllabus just being like a list of topics, but helping us see it as a travel guide for our students in their learning. That's how we want to see it. Okay, we have another poll. Because it's a CEILS workshop, we got to interact. So you can look at the slide. Oh no, sorry, this poll we already did. Oh,
sorry.
right. We're going to end the polling.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what happened is I think that in restarting the polling, we just erased the data. But I meant, oh, there's the data.
Here it is. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to hand this over to Jenny because this is her slide. So Jenny.
Yeah, I mean, I think the results of the poll, can everybody see the results? It seems the majority of us felt like most of the time the students don't actually read the syllabus beyond the first week. As an instructor, sometimes it feels like they don't read the syllabus at all, especially if you get repeated questions about policy. But can I get a slide change? But the truth is that the literature actually finds that a lot of the students do reference the syllabi. And in fact, even when they check in with students at the end of the term, 80% of the students still say that they actually view and use the syllabus. And so I think it's really important for us to realize that the syllabus is something that's not only coming from us, but that our students actually do reference it and use it more than we might think. And given that, maybe it's important that we think about how our students are using our syllabi. And this was just one study that we looked into, but there's many more about students' uses of syllabi. We strongly actually encourage you to check in with your own students and kind of just ask to see when they're using the syllabus and how often. But I think that actually leads us to the next question that we have for you on the next poll. If our students are using our syllabus, how much thought are we putting into our syllabus from the get-go?
Okay, we have about 90% of everybody, so just a couple more people. There we go.
So it looks like a lot of you maybe make some small revisions right before each time you teach. So today we're going to be talking a lot about syllabus design and some of the revisions you can make to your syllabus that maybe for you are smaller or more significant. But as we find ourselves now in the remote teaching environment, maybe there's going to be some changes that you really want to implement as we go forward. But keep in mind that these aren't just going to be for this remote environment. This is a worthwhile effort that you can continue and bring into your syllabus once we do go back into our in-person, hopefully soon, hopefully at some point, classes. So let's talk about our learning outcomes for today. So we are going to, again, engage in reviewing the syllabus and really taking that equity-minded approach that we mentioned at the beginning, as well as kind of identifying the lots of purposes that syllabi serve. And so like Jenny kind of talked about, that students look at their syllabus a lot. And so what are the purposes that they're getting out of that? Then we're going to reflect a bit on the meaning of what it means to have an equity-minded syllabus, and then identify ways to have more welcoming tone and inclusive language. Then we'll talk about investigating different components of the syllabus to really reflect on ways to make your syllabus more equitable. And then utilize this tool that Rachel kind of introduced, and again, we'll talk a bit more later about how you can go back and really think about and think of the syllabus as a guide for students from all backgrounds on how they can succeed in your class. So let's move on into it.
Okay, this is me. We're going to talk about what are the standard purposes of a syllabus. Write down in the left two columns what you think the standard purposes of a syllabus are. So on that, so click on the Google Doc link. Yeah, I already see people doing it. You can click lower if you're overlapping with folks. Okay, you all are putting in a whole lot of wonderful purposes for the syllabus. In your breakouts, you'll start by introducing yourself to people because you'll be with them in 3 more breakouts. And we'll ask you to look at part of a sample syllabus, just one page, and think about how this is achieving some student or learner-centered goals. And see if it reveals any additional goals of a syllabus that you haven't thought about. And then after that, we want you to imagine reading the syllabus as a student from an underrepresented group and thinking about what you might appreciate. We want to remind you, this is an example syllabus for a reason. It's okay if your syllabus doesn't look like this, my syllabus doesn't look like this. It's there to give us ideas of things we can aspire to in our own syllabi. Any questions on the instructions before I send you into your breakout room? Okay.
You can also find the instructions and the links to the images there, or the syllabus, on the 4th page of the document we just shared, the Google Doc.
Exactly. So the instructions will be there and you'll be in a room with a facilitator. So I'm going to send you all off into your breakout rooms. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your potentially first Zoom breakout, if that was your first Zoom breakout. I'm seeing great comments on the Google Doc. And so what we're going to ask you to do next is read what other groups wrote in the Google Doc and share in the chat something that you found interesting in what someone else wrote. People are still typing. You're like students that just want to keep working on your homework, but it's not for a grade, everybody. It's not typing. And I know it's a lot to read through. I think what's happening, people might be clicking on the other pages because they're very curious about the other pages that they didn't get to read, which we also encourage you to do. But yeah, take this time to think about other aspects of the syllabus that your group might not have addressed. Yeah, Melody's talking about having an inviting introduction and sense of belonging. And sense of belonging, if you're not familiar with it, is one of those things found most to kind of decrease gaps between how students from underrepresented groups and non-underrepresented groups perform. Because as soon as you can increase sense of belonging and make their science identity and feel like they're part of this culture and organization, that can really affect their learning and motivation. That's great. Yeah, and if anybody has questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Siobhan, do you want to elaborate on your question for a minute? Would it be problematic to specify an expectation?
So this one was about this general expectation for behavior in class and respect among students. So I don't think it's problematic for me to be like, we should respect each other. And I didn't look at it, so I don't know if they actually defined what behaviors would be respectful. But there's also ways where we can define behaviors in a class that are actually, I think if we're not careful, they are actually very restrictive and exclusive, because we're trying to get people to behave in the way that we think is correct, which may not be inclusive.
Right, okay, so when we're specifying behaviors, we want to make sure that these aren't like culturally exclusive behaviors or limiting behaviors. Yeah, I think that came from the part of the syllabus that said, approach your classmates with kindness and encouragement, which we hopefully all agree is a generally good behavior. Things like that, but that's a good point to bring up. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is move on. Oh, I see a question from Stephanie. The time management part, can somebody tell us which page that was, and we can just refer anybody interested in time management? Whose group was that?
I think that was our group. That was group 3.
Group 3,
and
okay.
I think we were simply saying that in the, we only got to see group 3, which has these 6 panels above James Baldwin. Mm-hmm. And it was a very nice overarching worldview, but an open question is, what's the time frame for all this? And so it could actually be, in some sense, confusing and stressful depending on what else is laid out elsewhere in the syllabus.
Right, right. So kind of not wanting to overwhelm too much with your syllabus. You do want to balance, have a welcoming tone, provide a lot of information, but not in an overwhelming way. And so anybody looking at page 3 now can see they lay it out to help time management, but you'd want to be careful to guide students through it. Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Okay, Now I'm going to move us on, though, to have everybody share. And the way that I want everybody to share here, and we're trying to model things you can do in your class too, is type your answer to these questions, but don't hit enter until we say so. So that everybody can appear all at once. And so we're not trying to read other people's and comparing our response to them. So these questions in the chat are, why are the content and style of syllabi important, particularly for underrepresented students? And what are the benefits of having an equitable syllabus? You can answer one or both, but type a sentence for your class and you answering those questions. And then I'll let you know when to hit enter. Okay, everybody hit enter. Okay. So this can always be overwhelming, the information that comes in these chats, but they encourage us all to think about it, and then you can review what other people said in the chat and see patterns. But you all are seeing how the content and style can matter. And that's what I'm seeing, how it can make the course feel accessible and open. And so I'm going to hand this over to Rachel now to summarize some of the main
Yeah, and I, just to echo what Shauna was saying in terms of some of the themes, definitely I'm seeing an awareness piece of being more inclusive and welcoming. And so when you think about your syllabus as the first and most important message that your students are getting from you, you may not be aware that you are also revealing your own beliefs and your values and the worldviews that you hold, right? As well as the worldviews of your institution, the values of your institution. So to increase your awareness of that, right, the ways that you may be explaining that to your students is really important in terms of how that message is coming across to them, right? It may not be obvious to you, but it may be, those views may be obvious to you, but they may not be obvious to your students. They probably won't be obvious to your students unless you explicitly state them in very supportive ways, right? Your syllabus can also be used, as we've talked about, to introduce the norms and the rules that particularly better support students from underrepresented groups. So again, if you are more aware of your own values, your own views, and how you're communicating them, then you can also introduce those norms and values that you know will be more supportive of students who are from underrepresented groups. And we have to think about this even more critically now, right, in the remote environment, because we know that the disadvantages, the inequities are all amplified in the remote environment. This is a great article that talks about that. And so the syllabus being your gateway message immediately sends this idea to students whether this gateway is open or whether it's shut, right? So being explicit and communicating how you're communicating is really important, especially in the remote environment. Everybody feels like they're out in the ether. Everyone feels very isolated. So being really explicit about the communication, the ways that you're going to communicate, right? Whether it's on Zoom, whether it's through email, both, asynchronously, all of those details, being really explicit about those logistics are really important. Also, letting students know where they stand in your class in terms of their grade and their progress, and doing that in a very frequent way so that they are very clear about where they're at and they don't feel like they are disconnected. That is a really important part of how to help students feel like they are, that they know what's going on and they're connected with you and with the course. And then just thinking about, again, this lack of awareness of the inequities really can increase the probability of amplifying those inequities. So again, we really want to help you try and think about the awareness, your own awareness of what those inequities are and how we can help mitigate them. Okay.
Okay, so some of you might be thinking, wait a second, I'm going to put all this effort into my syllabus. Are students even going to read it? And how are they going to notice all these things in our syllabus? And so we have a little poll for you. It might be our last poll. to get you thinking about ways to help your students get the most out of your syllabus. And Rachel, I think, is going to make this poll appear. I don't know if it is a check all that apply poll. If it can be, that'd be great. But your different options could be, you plan to go over the syllabus on the first day of class. That's A. Another option B that some of us have done is assign a short CCLE quiz. And this option should be like, you know, infinite attempts. You don't want to stress out the students in the first week with like, did you memorize the syllabus? But direct their attention to the most frequently asked questions. And once I started doing this, my first 2 weeks got much calmer because the students had to answer their own questions on the CCLE quiz instead of email me, which I loved. Another option that some folks do here at UCLA is a Zoom session. And so you could organize a syllabus scavenger hunt. And this can happen in Zoom in breakout rooms where students are working in groups to use the syllabus to answer their common questions. It's also a great way to build community. And then another option is just refer to the syllabus a lot. Get them to look at it. So, you know, each week say, okay, the syllabus is describing your homework for this week, or the syllabus is telling you what's coming up. Or you might have E and you don't have anything planned yet, which is okay. But curious to see what you're thinking. And we're also modeling techniques of kind of presenting information to you in ways that gets you to interact with it in this poll. And I'm curious to hear what you all are leaning towards. So yeah, it looks like a lot of folks are going to go over it on the first day. Is this setting that they can select more than one, Rachel, or just one?
So what if it is none of the above?
If you don't have anything planned for the syllabus, that would be.
I do, but I don't do any of this.
Oh, okay. Well, Graciela, what do you want to share what you're planning to do?
So I always do the same thing, even in class. On the first day, I ask them to read the syllabus and that we are going to talk about it at the beginning of the following class. And then I ask them to ask questions about what is that they have and they have not understood. And in particular, I would like to know if anybody has any problem with the dates that are mentioned in the syllabus. And usually people, by the second time they have read it.
Yeah, that's a great approach. We'll add it, Graciela. But this idea, ask them to ask questions about the syllabus and give them a good reason to do so, which is like check the dates. So at least you're giving them something in their own self-interest that is having them do it. Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Katie. Okay, Katie.
Okay, great. So now we kind of want to do a little bit of practice, but again, we mentioned earlier this equity-minded syllabus review tool. Now this comes out of USC. I know there are rivals, but I highly, highly recommend that you go back later and go through the tool because there's a lot of great reflection activities and it'll help guide you when you go back to try to revise your syllabus a bit more. It won't take too long either. But again, I've been sharing this with everyone and I highly recommend. We're going to share a few of the different a couple of the different things that came out of it and go through some of the exercises. But first to start, I'm going to think about 3 essential components of language that you could have in your syllabus. So the first being a welcoming tone. And a lot of people I saw pointed out that the syllabus example we saw had this welcoming tone to communicate care and support and class norms. Another one to think about is called demystifying, or providing students information they need to succeed, or maybe first-time college students, for example, ways that they can succeed and what it means to study in college, for example. And then there's validating, so a tone to communicate a belief in students' ability to be successful no matter what. So these are a few different things that you might try to include in your syllabus, or ways that you might want to reword some of the things you already have into this more welcoming, demystifying, and validating tone. So we're going to do a little bit of practice, and Samantha's going to lead us through this next activity.
Yeah, so the next activity involves me asking you guys whether you think that this part of the syllabus is welcoming or unwelcoming. So I'll give you guys a second to read that.
Can everybody see it? Yeah, okay.
And then in the chat, I'm gonna ask you guys to either respond with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So just go to participants and there should be a series of little emojis there. And in the more section, there's a thumb up or thumbs down. So if you think it's welcoming, give a thumbs up, and unwelcoming, a thumbs down. Okay, so we got about 14 thumbs down and 5 thumbs up. So most of us think it's unwelcoming. I'll go to the next slide now. And we were mostly right. That little snippet is a little bit more unwelcoming. Here you can see the more welcoming slide. They specifically say, I welcome you to contact me outside of class and student hours. Now, I think for a lot of professors, it's obvious that, yes, of course I welcome my students, but for students, it might not be as obvious. So that's where we want to say explicitly and have intentionally welcoming, welcoming language. That may be less obvious for your students. So on the next slide, I'm going to hand it off to Katie.
Thanks. So those are just some small changes you can make, right? On that tool that I was just mentioning, there's a whole bunch of different examples that you could look at, maybe ways to just reword a few different things to make something feel more welcoming. And so you can look at those later. We'll add that in our materials that we share out afterwards. So next slide. The other thing that you can do to make your syllabus feel a little more welcoming is think about the focus of your syllabus, right? Are you focusing on content or are you focusing on the learner or the student? So here is an example. It's maybe a little blurry or smaller to see, but the example is maybe something you might see more typically, right? It's the topic, the schedule, and the readings that are associated with it. Now, if we go to this more learner-focused or learning-focused syllabus here, it has a little bit of a description of what you might be doing in the class. And instead of listing it out as topic, schedule, reading, it's more phrased questions and themes will explore how you would prepare for the discussion by reading this particular page, and some reminders, right, which we'll be doing in class. Those are the assignments that we'll be due that are associated with it. So again, it's just another way to kind of rephrase and retool something that you would already have there. And it's just, again, a small change that can make a big difference for a first-time student, for example, or just for students in general. So we have a couple quotes. I'm not going to read through all of them, but students at UCLA, I believe, no, students just in general have said that a content-focused syllabus felt a bit more strict and that the professor felt more unfriendly or unapproachable, whereas the learner-focused ones, they felt more approachable and encouraged, and they felt that they genuinely care about students learning the material. So there are these other two ones, and we just want to give some quick examples of those before we have you go off and practice this a little. So an example of a validating statement: remember, learning is a process and requires work. I truly believe everyone in this class will be able to excel, and I'll be here to help support you. And then demystifying, perhaps, is I've recorded the majority of my lectures for you to watch over time. That said, I recommend you create a designated time each week to watch them. That can help with scheduling and time management so you can stay on track and participate in class discussions and avoid last-minute cramming. So that kind of demystifies this online remote learning where students maybe wouldn't have thought of that. And so maybe it's like a study tip or something. So now we are going to go into breakout rooms. Let's see. Sammy, do you want to start us off with this activity? It's all right. So what we're just going to do again is go into the breakout rooms. We have some example language that's not necessarily very validating or transparent. And so in your groups, we're just going to take a couple minutes to rewrite the language example that you have into something that's a bit more validating or demystifying. So again, we'll assign some roles. We'll have a person to record and a person to share later. And we will have somebody new do that, so it's not the same scribe. So maybe the next birthday.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, we're going to keep going back to that same Google Doc. We're just going to be scrolling down to the next activity. So you're not opening up a new Google Doc. It's the same one you had open. And we're just going to scroll down to the next breakout session, which is number 2.
So it's on page 6. Any questions? All right, we'll see you back soon.
Okay. I moved 2 people to different rooms because of switches. So if you're in a different room, welcome your newcomer, and see you all soon.
Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you found that exercise useful. I'm seeing a lot of really great ideas in the Google Doc now. Instead of going through this at the moment, we are going to share this information with you after the workshop as well as the recording, so you can always go back and look through it. But I want to make sure we have enough time to move on to our next activity, which Rachel is going to lead us through. All right, there we go.
I'm on mute. Okay, this is where you now get to dive into your own syllabus and really interrogate it, thinking about all the principles that we were just using and practicing and thinking and reflecting on. So what we want you to do is you're going to take out your own syllabus. We want to give you time to work on your own in some quiet space, while also having us as facilitators available to help you if you get stuck anywhere. Could you just click on the next animation? Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to ask you to do is identify these elements on your own syllabus. Whoops. So, is it incorporating a welcoming tone? Is the language validating students from all backgrounds? How would you feel if you were reading the syllabus as an underrepresented student or a first-gen student? Is it demystifying all those things and being transparent? And so we'll ask you to go through your own syllabus, take 5 or 6 minutes to do that, 7 minutes. We'll give you, the time that you need, as much time as we have. Put your computer on mute because we'll be in our great breakout rooms. And so if you just put the volume down in case anybody has a question and we want to talk with someone individually, we won't be disturbing you. And then we'll spend the last 5 minutes talking together in small groups about what you learned and what your takeaway was from doing this exercise. And we'll ask you just to record your group's biggest takeaway in the Google Doc. Is that clear? Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so we're going to go back into our breakout rooms. Welcome back, everybody. So it looks like almost every group got to add some takeaways on the Google Doc. Some people still adding, which is great. So one of the things that, and you certainly can go ahead and read through other people's comments if you haven't already done that. But just to kind of wrap this up, we really wanted to get across the point that this process of interrogating and reviewing your syllabus really helps you increase your awareness, right, of how to be more inclusive. And one of the things we talked about in our group is a lot of us felt like, hey, I thought I was being inclusive, and then I went back and I looked at my syllabus, and the first thing I saw was, here's my email, or, here's where I'm going to be lecturing. So just being able to go back with this mindset, I think, can really help increase your awareness and how you can create a syllabus that does inspire your students to want to go back and read it, right? And does inspire your students to really be motivated to use the syllabus as a tool to help them achieve the learning outcomes in your class. And that's really the goal, right? It's a really good idea, like we started to do here, to find someone that you have trust with to help you continue to review your syllabus and develop it, because getting that feedback, it's not always clear from our own view. So it's really great to get other people's perspectives. But again, if we're thinking about equity mindedness, you want to make sure you're doing that with someone who you trust and you not feel is just going to criticize you or just be evaluative, but someone who's really going to help you with constructive feedback. We'll give you the link to the syllabus review guide. We highly encourage you and hope that we've inspired you to go back and use this tool, which really walks you through this whole process of how to interrogate your syllabus and how to review it, asks you really great reflective questions to help you think about these ideas. And so we really encourage that you go back and use this specific tool. Next.
Okay. So I added a link to those resources actually on the very last page of the shared Google Doc for now. We will share them with you again, but in case you're curious for the links, they're there. There's one little piece that I forgot to mention about demystifying, which I wanted to do in the debrief, which we decided not to do, is to really think about it in the remote learning environment. And so the tool that we're talking about is just kind of more in general about the syllabus, but thinking about some of the things you might want to demystify for remote learning, right, is maybe how to succeed in this new environment that students might not be used to, additional resources. People have mentioned that a lot of students mentioned really having mental health problems this last semester or last quarter. So resources for that or well-being, guiding time management, and other things like that. Maybe how to participate or deal with technical problems. So those are some things you might want to think about including for this particular context. So again, I just wanted to kind of put that as a caveat here and have you reflect on that later.
Thank you, Katie. As our last slide, we do want to say, if you were here to look at sample general syllabus language and sections, we also have that on our website, and I'll ask one of my co-facilitators to put that in the chat. But we have a bunch of checklists that are just like, do you have this in your syllabus? Do you have that in your syllabus? And those will guide you through this as well. We also have sample language. We were just focused on the equity piece here, but if you were really I'm starting a syllabus from scratch, or I really want to evaluate a syllabus for the components, that's on our website, including a syllabus scavenger hunt. I know some people are excited about that. Thank you for your engagement. We're ending right on time. We're going to put a feedback form link here. We really value your feedback and listen to it. So please do take just 2 minutes to fill it out. Let us know how to keep improving these. And thank you so much.
I just want to say something about that. This is our first time really constructing a syllabus workshop in this way. So we really would value, especially now, in our thinking about how to make this better. So we'd love to hear your feedback. So please do take the time, just a few minutes, to let us know what you thought. And plug for our next workshop. So we have our assessment design workshop, which will be on July 29th. And then designing for student engagement on July 31st. We're going to be rerunning these again in September, but for those of you, especially if you're teaching in summer session C, we highly recommend that you join us for those and hope to see you. And we'll stick around for a few minutes if anybody has any questions. So I want to thank our co-facilitators also. Really appreciate that. Good job. And thank everybody for coming. It was great to see you and hope to see you again.